This is part 11 of the interview with Harry Anthony for the Columbia University Archives. And Dad, I'd like to ask you, you were a professor and administrator at Columbia University during the 1960s, which was a very tumultuous decade. So could you tell us how the student uprisings affected you and your classes at the time?
In 1968, a catastrophe came all over Colombia because the students all of a sudden revolted. They saw their professors and the administrators as uh, persons of authority. And somehow they got the idea that they don't have to obey everything that authorities tell them to obey. So they started a revolution. It became extremely disagreeable. They rushed and entered the office of the president of Columbia University, Dr. Grayson Kirk, and they occupied his own personal office, and they started smoking his cigars and putting their feet, their shoes on his desk, and then doing things that were unimaginable just weeks before that. So the president felt obliged to call the police. And the police came, and it was not beautiful. They started arresting some students, bringing them to prison, and whatever. So students played hard to get, and they went to some buildings and they occupied them, including Avery Hall, which was the School of Architecture and Planning. So they occupied. So I wanted to go inside because I had a checkbook. My checkbook was in my drawer in my office, and they wouldn't open the door. So I said, look, I have a... So they did eventually, but they put one of them to accompany me as I went up to my office to open and to see that I would not do anything else but get out my checkbook. So I said, well, I have a class that is graduating in June. That was the big event was in the spring. And I feel I have an obligation, I get paid by the university, to teach them so that they will be able to graduate. Many of them already try to find a job because they assume that they will get the degree. In June, I have architects, I have city planners. So what can I do? They say, well, professor, you can just tell us anything you want. You will not be able to teach your class in this building. So I went to the priest of our St. Paul's Chapel, the chapel of the university, where a lot of good things happened in the past. I found the priest and I said, can I use your chapel to continue my graduate classes? And well, he said, what? I said, well, I would show slides because architecture, city planning is taught with slides also that we show, buildings, cities, and so on. It's part of the lectures. And I think that if I put a screen in the front of your chapel, I'll manage it. He said, yeah, but I know you're a Greek, and maybe you'll say some dirty jokes. And he said, I don't know why you got this idea, but I said, well, I cannot promise that I will not. Maybe some students will say, but how about giving me the basement of your chapel, underneath? I said, well, this I could do. I said, I'll be grateful to you, and if sometime in the future you are in need of space, I'll give you my office at Avery Hall. So then I informed all my students that the class continues during this upheaval in the basement of St. Paul's Chapel. I had my projector, I had my slides. The trouble is that the basement, all the walls and the ceilings were curved. They were going up like this, you see, cylindrical ceilings, curves here, there. I was showing slides, and they were completely deformed. Buildings that had one part going this way, that way. But we did not mind. This was a necessity. And I taught this instead of being under some trees on campus, as some other of my colleagues did, to teach under the trees. So this is something that affected me very badly. And I felt a thing like this should not happen at a university.
Do you remember for how many weeks you taught in the chapel?
Well, it must have been at least 6 or 7 or 8 weeks, because it was towards the end of the semester, because at the end I certified all the students that they should get their degrees. Mm-hmm. You see, because of the work that we did together, and I gave them all oral exams and so on. They passed.
So how did the students react to having the classes there?
They loved it. They loved it because they had made commitments of their time upon graduation. And getting a job upon graduation was and still is always a competitive event. You don't have a job waiting for you outside. You have to try to get it. So many had made such approaches to architectural offices in New York and elsewhere, like to the beautiful firm of Skidmore and Merrill, for instance, and to others. And they thought, we told them, on that date in June, I'll be here to start working. And they felt very embarrassed so they were happy. They were happy. All the students were happy. I was left with a bad feeling to see that students of ours would not let us go in to our offices, to our desks. What is this? It was very, very bad. So, however, because Dr. Kirk had called the police, this counted against him, because some of the professors even, who were a little on the left side of the spectrum, lined up with the revolutionary students, and things became a little ugly, to the point where Dr. Kirk could not get the vote of confidence of the entire faculty, and he had to resign. So it was bad, and it left a bad feeling, very bad feeling, because this thing don't have to have students come there to smoke your cigars and put their feet on your desk. I always considered my office at Columbia a sacred place. It was the place where I was preparing my lectures, my teaching, the place where, I was earning the means for my family, my wife, my 2 daughters, to have a comfortable life. And all of a sudden to see not to be able to go to my own desk. But anyway, that's how it was. So, my impressions were, what a shame it was for Columbia to come to that position, for the student body to come so low, and to have people in the university resigned before their time and all that. It was bad. And it left a bad feeling.
Okay. Anything else? That's it. Okay. That concludes part 11 of the interview with Harry Anthony for the Columbia University Archives. Thank you.